All right, today we're going to break down a really critical strategy for anyone trying to build technology in the super high-stakes world of healthcare.
Okay, let's just dive right in, because this is the question, isn't it? It's what keeps innovators up at night. Whether you're a huge hospital system or a tiny startup, the pressure to get your digital tools right is just immense.
You know, building an app for healthcare isn't like building a game or a social media platform. It's like you're navigating a minefield from day one. You've got these super constrained budgets, intense regulatory pressure, like HIPAA in the US, which is all about patient data privacy. Then you got patients who, by the way, expect a seamless experience just like they get from any other app. And, of course, the big one. If you fail, the consequences for people's health can be absolutely critical.
So how in the world do you succeed with all that stacked against you? Well, the answer is a strategy that kind of flips the old way of doing things on its head. It's called the minimum viable product, or as you'll hear all the time, the MVP.
Now, a healthcare MVP isn't just about building a cheaper, stripped-down app. It's way smarter than that. Think of it like a precision instrument for learning. Instead of trying to build every single feature you can dream up, you focus on creating the simplest possible version that solves just one critical problem, but solves it really well for your very first users. This lets you test your big idea in the real world without, betting the entire farm on it. And this really gets to the heart of it. The whole idea is to start with a rock-solid, secure foundation that does one thing perfectly. See, the goal isn't to launch a finished product. Not at all. It's to launch a learning product. It's something that's designed from the ground up to get feedback from actual doctors, nurses, and patients, so you can make it better using real data, not just your best guesses. I mean, this comparison makes it so clear. On one hand, you can bet the whole budget on a single, massive launch that takes years to build, all while assuming you know what people want. Or you can take the MVP approach. You place small, smart bets, you start delivering value in just a few months, and you use actual data to make sure you're building something people really need. It's the difference between a huge potential failure and a series of small, controlled wins.
Okay, so let's look at how this strategy plays out for the two major players in healthcare tech, the big, established hospitals and the small, nimble startups. They've got totally different goals, right? But what's fascinating is that they both need this exact same approach.
For a large hospital, the biggest fear, the absolute nightmare scenario, is a massive, expensive project failure that messes up patient care, makes clinicians' lives harder, and just wastes millions of dollars. The MVP is their ultimate tool for reducing that risk. So an MVP lets hospitals try out new ideas in a safe, controlled way. It gives them something real, a tangible prototype that they can show to doctors, nurses, and administrators to get everyone on the same page. It can prove a return on investment before they commit millions. And critically, it can test how a new tool is going to play with those clunky, complex legacy systems like electronic health records, all while keeping the initial risk incredibly low.
Now, for a startup, it's a completely different story. The clock is always ticking. They have to prove their idea works before the money runs out. So for them, the MVP isn't just a good idea, it's literally essential for survival.
Right. So for startups, the MVP is their ticket into the game. It's how they prove to investors that they have a real product that real users are giving feedback on. It forces them to be smart and focus their limited cash on the features that actually make a difference. And it gives them an early and invaluable look at the tangled web of healthcare compliance rules.
Okay, so you're on board. You're convinced. But how do you actually, build one? Well, here's a proven blueprint that can take you from just an idea to a real-world product.
If you follow these steps, development stops being a guessing game, and it becomes a systematic process of learning and getting better. You start by really deeply understanding a single user problem. Then, you build the absolute simplest solution for it. You release it to a small, controlled group, and then, and this is the most important part, you measure everything. Use that data to learn, improve, and then you just repeat the cycle.
This right here is the golden rule. I can't stress this enough. In healthcare tech, compliance is not a feature you add later on. It's the foundation you have to build everything on top of. From the very first line of code you write for your MVP, things like security, privacy, and consent have to be baked right into the architecture. Getting this wrong doesn't just cause a few delays, it can completely destroy user trust and land you in serious legal trouble.
You can't just launch your MVP and cross your fingers. You have to measure its impact, and you have to be meticulous about it. So you're asking questions like, are people actually using it? That's your adoption rate. Are they coming back to use it again? That's retention. Is it actually making their job easier or faster? That's task efficiency. For example, you could literally time how long it takes a nurse to do a specific task before and after they have your tool. Tracking these kinds of metrics gives you the hard data you need to go back and justify the next round of investment.
All right, let's bring it home. We're going to wrap this up by looking at the real-world returns you get from this approach, and just as important, the common traps that can completely derail your project. The payoff here is huge, and it's not just about saving money on features that nobody ends up using. It's about building a fundamentally better product that people actually want to use because you included them in the process from the very beginning. That builds trust, it leads to way faster adoption, and it makes it so much easier to get funding, whether that's from your hospital board or from a VC firm.
And the benefits here can be dramatic. I mean, check this out. Imagine a simple workflow tool MVP that's so well designed for one specific task that it gives clinicians back a quarter of the time they spend on paperwork, a 25% reduction. That's a direct, measurable return that you can get in months, not years. That's a huge deal.
But you have to be careful. Avoiding these mistakes is just as important as following the blueprint. The biggest killer is probably feature creep, that temptation to just add one more nice-to-have thing. But honestly, ignoring compliance, building without user feedback, or launching without clear success metrics, any one of those is just as deadly. They can sink even the most brilliant idea.
So, I guess the final takeaway is this. Starting with an MVP isn't about thinking small, it's about thinking smart. It's about having the discipline to test your assumptions, to actually listen